this infrastructure idea, I mean, this was supposed to be literally the bridge builder between Democrats and Republicans. Do you think at this point, it started off so toxic with that record partial government shutdown, there's any room for a compromise that we could see infrastructure?
Look, I think when we first started, when President Bush was first elected, there was this optimistic view that he would literally and figuratively be the bridge builder, you say. We've obviously seen that he is governing in a very, very different way. So I would expect that tonight, when he has the podium, when he's being scripted, that we're going to see a kind of outreach on infrastructure. I wouldn't be surprised if he turns back and tries to shake Pelosi's hand or do something like this. But he faces really three difficult issues. One, trust. People don't trust making a deal with him. Even Republicans have got burned on DACA, on the shutdown appropriation, so there's very little trust. Two, design. Democrats are going to want real spending, not loans, public-private partnerships, and they're going to want, as Chuck Schumer has said, a green infrastructure component that deals with climate change. That's tough. And then the third issue is the fiscal. They've just driven up the deficit by $2 trillion. So Democrats are going to want something, but people are going to want it to be more deficit neutral, and that's going to lead to the disputes about whether Trump is willing to pull back some of his recent tax cut to help pay for infrastructure. Those are three pretty tough bars to get over.
Stephen, do you agree? Do you think meaningful spend on infrastructure is as elusive as Gene suggests?
Well, let me start with the last point. I guarantee you there's not going to be a big tax increase or a pullback on the tax cut because, we believe the tax cut's been a phenomenal success. Now, I do agree with Gene that I think Trump will put an olive branch out to Speaker Pelosi tonight, saying, let's get something done on this. I think he's going to do the same thing on immigration. It's going to be I think, a kinder and gentler Donald Trump tonight. And, we'll see what kind of response that gets from Speaker Pelosi. I mean, I think Gene is right that there's a big trust issue here between, whether the Democrats believe they can trust Trump. But the other issue is, that when Republicans talk about infrastructure and Democrats talk about infrastructure, I think Gene is right. It's like, Republicans are on Mars and Democrats are on Venus. I mean, what we want to see on infrastructure, we need more roads. We need more bridges. We need better ports. We need, the energy infrastructure, the pipelines, the LNG terminals. We're virtually the number one producer of oil and gas. And, that's the kind of thing that we want. Gene is right. Democrats want, more green energy programs. They want mass transit. So I think there's an issue of whether they're actually even talking about the same thing.
Since you brought up the tax cut, and I imagine we'll hear about that and how successful. I mean, the market obviously liked it, Stephen, but when you say it's been successful, how are you measuring it? The $4,000 boost that families were supposed to get as a result of the tax cuts, did that happen?
Well, my mom used to say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We have an incredible economy right now, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We've got, the biggest construction boom going on in American history. It ties into, when you talked about infrastructure, my God, the infrastructure that's going on in America today. Every city I go to, whether it's Denver or Nashville or Cleveland or San Francisco or Los Angeles or, Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, all you see is buildings going up, spending by businesses. So manufacturing is back big time. Construction is good. That's exactly what we wanted to see, and wages are up. So all of those happen, in part as a consequence of the tax cut.
So, Gene, I guess you would disagree.
Yeah, I think you have to do some very creative manufacturing to manufacture a positive spin on this tax cut. I mean, we now see that it's actually not paying for itself, that it could be driving the deficit up by $1.5 to $2 trillion. The National Association of Business Economists just did a survey saying that 84% of companies say it has not affected their hiring or their investment plans at all. The workers, after getting some symbolic increases, bonuses, really have seen wages go up maybe 1%, while we have seen record stock buybacks. I think, in fact, this is actually, I think most of the public is going to see, and I think you'll see that going into 2020, that this tax cut is seen as a liability, and the strength in the numbers that Steve mentions are just the continuation of the trend that started under President Obama and have at least not been arrested under President Trump. But you certainly can't say the tax cut has somehow made anything that matters to working families significantly better.
Gene, when you considered the America First message, which I guess is expected to continue, do you think it will be a centerpiece in the same way it has been in the past couple of years? And do you think it resonates in the same way that it has done with his base still?
I think it will be. I think it will be heavily America First. I think you'll feel that in immigration, border security, trade. I think he'll call on trade for national, a national security rationale for more trade protectionism. But he has been president for 2 years, so he's obviously going to have to put a more positive spin under what has happened under his watch. So I wouldn't expect the kind of dark message that you saw in his inauguration.
Stephen, I'll tie the two stories together because even Gary Cohn, who used to work for the president and was the architect of the tax plan, one of them, on this program said that you're not getting the amount of business spending and investment and capital spending that he would have liked to see under the tax cut because of the trade policies of this administration and the uncertainties that that's creating when it comes to planning. So is the president shooting himself in the foot with the America First trade policies after giving corporations the massive tax break?
By the way, Gary Cohn didn't write the tax plan. Larry Kudlow and I did. We wrote it during the campaign, and we got about 80% of what we want. Look, I just don't buy Gene's argument. Almost everything we've done economically since Trump came into the office was to reverse the Obama policies. And, you know, we got 3% growth in 2018. That's something, as you know, Gene, that in 8 years Obama wasn't able to do, even though he kept forecasting we'd get 4%. So something big has happened in the economy. There's a difference between a recovery and an economic boom, and we're in one of those right now. Now, the thing that could disrupt this economic boom, the thing that's keeping me up at night, is whether he can get this trade deal done with China. I think he's almost staked his entire presidency on getting this done, because if he can get a decent deal with China where they make some reasonable concessions, and let's face it, China's the bad actor on the international scene right now in so many ways. They steal, they are engaged in industrial espionage right now. I could go down the gambit. But if that happens and Trump gets a deal where China makes concessions, I think the economy is going to go through the roof. I think you'll see a Dow 30,000. Conversely, if he can't get that deal done, then I think you could see, that 25% tariff is going to do real damage to the U.S. economy and China's economy.
Gene, 20 seconds, quick final word.
I think that Donald Trump does seem like he's hungering for a deal, and I think China can see he's hungering for a deal. I think there's a very good chance he'll do that because he is so worried about what's happening to the economy. But my guess is it's not going to be what was envisioned in the type of structural, tough enforcement on technology transfers. My guess is it's going to be something that he can go out and brag about, and that's what he's decided that's where he wants to go. And I think the Chinese negotiators can hear that all the way from Washington, D.C.